Imagine humanity's beginning, not as a slow climb, but as a sudden leap. What if the ancient gods of Sumer weren't myths, but visitors from another planet? What if they came to Earth, shaping our early civilization, and perhaps even our very DNA? This isn't just a wild idea, it's a deep dive into the what-if behind our past. We'll explore ancient stories, strange writings, and old ruins, not as folklore, but as clues to extraterrestrial involvement. If the Anunnaki were real, if these ancient alien gods truly walked among us, then the biggest secret of human history isn't hidden away, it's right there in our old tales. The chilling question is, were we ever truly alone on Earth? Before we start, I would like to know where you are watching this video from, and what time is it? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, while you are at it, please do like and subscribe so we can bring out more content like this. Now let's get started. The journey into our past begins not with a bang, but with a whisper. It's a whisper carried on the desert winds of what was once Mesopotamia, a land now known as Iraq. Here, between two great rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, something extraordinary happened. Around 6,000 years ago, in a place called Sumer, civilization as we know it suddenly bloomed. It wasn't a slow, hesitant growth. It was an explosion of knowledge, technology, and complex social structures that seems almost impossible for its time. Imagine a world where people were still living in simple villages, learning to farm and herd animals. Then, almost overnight, they were building massive cities with towering temples, developing intricate writing systems, creating laws, and understanding the movements of stars in a way that baffles modern scholars. How did this happen? Mainstream history offers explanations, of course, focusing on human ingenuity and the natural progression of ideas. But what if there was another, far more startling explanation? What if the stories they told, the myths they etched into clay tablets, were not just tales of powerful gods, but actual historical accounts? What if these gods were not supernatural beings in the sky, but visitors from another world, beings of flesh and blood who arrived on Earth and profoundly influenced humanity's earliest steps? This is the core question that drives our exploration. What if the Anunnaki were real? The Sumerians, the people of this ancient land, left behind thousands upon thousands of clay tablets. These aren't just dry records of trade or taxes. Many are deeply spiritual, filled with stories of creation, epic battles, and the daily lives of their deities. These gods were central to everything in Sumerian life. They were worshipped, feared, and believed to be directly involved in human affairs. They were seen as the ultimate authority, the source of all knowledge and power. But the Sumerian gods were different from the gods of later civilizations. Like the Greeks or Romans, they weren't just distant, ethereal beings living on mountaintops or in abstract heavens. The Sumerian gods, particularly a group they called the Anunnaki, seemed to live on Earth. They had physical needs. They ate, they drank. They had families, they argued, and they even had jobs. They were powerful, yes, but they also seemed surprisingly grounded, almost like very advanced, powerful people. The very name Anunnaki is fascinating. In Sumerian, it is often translated as those who from heaven to earth came. Think about that for a moment. Not those who live in heaven, but those who came from heaven to earth. This simple phrase, embedded in their language, hints at a journey, a relocation, rather than an eternal presence. It suggests an origin point beyond our world, and a deliberate arrival here. Among these Anunnaki, certain figures stand out. There was Enlil, often called the Lord of Command, or Lord of the Air. He was seen as the chief deity, a powerful and sometimes stern figure who controlled the weather and decreed the fates of both gods and humans. His word was law, and his decisions shaped the very fabric of Sumerian existence. He was the one who often made the big decisions, the one who held the ultimate authority over the affairs of Earth. Then there was Enki, the Lord of the Earth, or Lord of the Abyss. He was known as the god of wisdom, water, crafts, and creation. Enki was often depicted as a benevolent figure, a problem solver, and a friend to humanity. He was the one who brought knowledge and skills to humans, teaching them how to build, how to farm, and how to organize their societies. His domain was vast, encompassing the fresh waters beneath the earth and the deep secrets of knowledge. And there was Ninhursag, the Lady of the Mountain, or Lady of the Birth Brick. She was the mother goddess associated with creation, fertility, and life itself. She was often depicted as the one who helped bring humanity into being, a key figure in the very act of creation. These three, Enlil, Enki, and Ninhursag, formed a powerful trio, their interactions and decisions shaping the early world as described in Sumerian texts. The stories about these Anunnaki are incredibly detailed. They describe their cities, their homes, their vehicles, and their technologies in ways that feel surprisingly tangible. They talk about flying chariots, about devices that could move mountains, and about advanced medical procedures. These aren't vague, poetic descriptions. They are often precise, almost like technical manuals disguised as myths. This level of detail is one of the first things that makes you pause and wonder. Mainstream archaeology and religious studies have long interpreted these Sumerian myths as symbolic. They see the gods as personifications of natural forces, Enlil as the storm, Enki as the life-giving water, Ninhursag as the fertile earth. They view the stories as allegories for human struggles, societal structures, and the development of early religious thought. This is the accepted conventional understanding taught in universities and written in history books around the world. According to this view, the sudden rise of Sumerian civilization was a testament to human ingenuity, born from a unique combination of fertile land, a need for organized irrigation, and the natural evolution of human intelligence. The writing, the mathematics, the astronomy, all were brilliant human inventions, developed over time through trial and error, culminating in a sophisticated society. The gods were simply a reflection of their awe and wonder at the world around them, a way to explain the unexplainable before scientific understanding. But then, a different voice emerged, a voice that challenged these long-held interpretations, suggesting that we might have been looking at these ancient texts through the wrong lens entirely. This voice belonged to Zecharia Sitchin. Sitchin was a scholar who dedicated his life to translating and interpreting ancient Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, and Assyrian texts. He was not an archaeologist in the traditional sense, but a linguist and researcher with a deep fascination for these ancient writings. What Sitchin proposed was radical, controversial, and utterly mind-bending. He argued that the Sumerian texts were not just myths or allegories, but literal historical accounts. He believed that the Anunnaki were not gods in the spiritual sense, but advanced extraterrestrial beings who came to Earth thousands of years ago. His work, primarily his multi-volume series called the Earth Chronicles, turned the conventional understanding of human history on its head. Sitchin's central premise was that these Anunnaki came from a distant planet in our own solar system, a planet he called Nibiru. According to his interpretation of the ancient texts, Nibiru has a very long elliptical orbit around our Sun, bringing it close to Earth only once every 3,600 years. The Anunnaki, he claimed, came to Earth thousands of years ago in search of a vital resource, gold. They needed gold to repair their planet's atmosphere, which was apparently deteriorating. Upon their arrival, Sitchin suggested, they established bases on Earth, particularly in Mesopotamia. They began mining operations, but the work was hard and labor-intensive. This is where humanity enters the picture in Sitchin's controversial narrative. He argued that the Anunnaki, needing a workforce, genetically engineered early hominids using their own DNA, combined with that of primitive Earth creatures, to create Homo sapiens, us. This new being, which the Sumerians called the Adamu, was designed to serve the Anunnaki, to do the heavy labor in their mines. This idea that humanity was not the product of purely natural evolution, but of deliberate genetic manipulation by an advanced alien race, is perhaps the most shocking and profound aspect of Sitchin's work. It suggests that our very existence, our intelligence, our capabilities, might be a direct result of extraterrestrial intervention. It challenges not only our understanding of history, but also our understanding of ourselves. Sitchin pointed to specific Sumerian texts, like the Epic of Atrahasis, which described the creation of humans by the gods for the purpose of relieving the gods of their toil. He interpreted the detailed descriptions of the birth brick and the mixing of divine essence with clay as literal accounts of genetic engineering in a laboratory setting. He saw the breath of life as a spark of Anunnaki consciousness, giving humanity its unique spark. For those who adhere to Sitchin's interpretations, the Sumerian texts become a cosmic history book. The gods are no longer abstract symbols but powerful, technologically advanced beings with their own agendas, their own conflicts, and their own needs. The stories of their interactions with humanity become not myths, but records of a master-servant relationship, a mentorship, and sometimes a struggle for control. This perspective asks us to look at ancient artifacts and texts with entirely new eyes. When we see depictions of winged figures, are they angels or beings with personal flying devices? When we read about gods descending from the heavens in fiery chariots, are these poetic metaphors or descriptions of spacecraft? When we encounter intricate knowledge of astronomy and mathematics in cultures that supposedly lacked the tools for such discoveries, was it human genius alone, or was it taught? The conventional view provides one set of answers, neat and tidy, fitting into our established understanding of history. But Sitchin's work and the broader ancient astronaut theory offers another. It's a messy, unsettling, yet deeply intriguing alternative. It forces us to confront the possibility that the very foundations of our civilization were laid not by our own hands alone, but with the guidance, or perhaps even the direct intervention, of beings from beyond our world. This is not about proving Sitchin right or wrong. It is about opening our minds to a profound what if. It's about exploring the possibility that these ancient tales, often dismissed as mere fantasy, might contain a kernel of truth, a truth so monumental that it could redefine our place in the universe. If the Anunnaki were real, then the history we've been taught is incomplete, and the secrets of our past are far more extraordinary than we could ever imagine. The curiosity driver here is immense. Could these seemingly fantastical tales, these whispers from Sumer, truly hold a hidden truth? Could we be on the verge of re-examining them through a different lens, one that reveals a cosmic connection to our earliest ancestors? The implications are staggering, inviting us to consider a reality far more complex and thrilling than any textbook has dared to suggest. This is where our journey begins. At the dawn of ancient alien speculation, where the line between myth and history blurs and the echoes of another world begin to resonate. If the whispers from Sumer truly hint at an extraterrestrial presence, then the next question naturally arises. How did they arrive, and what was their purpose? Chapter 1 left us with the chilling possibility that we were never truly alone on Earth. Now we delve deeper into the what-if of their physical arrival, and the most controversial claim of all, their alleged role in the creation of humanity itself. Imagine a time, long before the first cities, when Earth was a wild, untamed place, populated by early hominids living a primitive existence. Then, from the vastness of space, something appeared. The Sumerian texts, when interpreted literally, speak of celestial boats and sky chariots descending from the heavens. These weren't just poetic metaphors for clouds or storms. They described vehicles, often with detailed accounts of their fiery descent and the powerful beings who emerged from them. According to Zecharia Sitchin's interpretations, these were the Anunnaki, arriving from their home planet, Nibiru. He paints a picture of a technologically advanced civilization facing a crisis on their own world. Their atmosphere, he suggested, was deteriorating, and they needed a specific element to repair it. Gold. Earth, rich in this precious metal, became their destination. It was not a benevolent visit driven by curiosity, but a mission of survival for their species. Upon their arrival, the Anunnaki, led by figures like Enlil and Enki, established their first settlements. The texts speak of places like Eridu, the first city, founded by Enki. These weren't just simple camps. They were described as sophisticated outposts, complete with landing platforms, administrative centers, and crucially, mining operations. The Anunnaki, despite their advanced technology, still needed to extract the gold from the earth. The work was arduous. The Sumerian texts describe how the Igigi, a lower rank of Anunnaki, were tasked with the back-breaking labor in the mines. They toiled for long periods, digging and processing the gold. But over time, the strain became too great. The Igigi rebelled. They laid down their tools, refusing to continue the grueling work. This rebellion, described in ancient texts like the Epic of Atrahasis, created a crisis for the Anunnaki leadership. They desperately needed the gold, but their workforce was unwilling to continue. This is the pivotal moment in Sitchin's narrative, the point where human history, as we know it, allegedly began. Faced with a labor shortage, the Anunnaki leaders, particularly Enki, proposed a radical solution: create a new worker. Not just any worker, but one capable of understanding commands, using tools, and enduring the harsh conditions of the mines. This new being would be designed specifically for the task. The texts describe a creation chamber or house of Shimti, where the genetic manipulation supposedly took place. Nin-Hersag, the mother goddess, was a key figure in this process, often depicted as the chief geneticist or midwife. The accounts speak of mixing divine essence or blood of a god with clay or earth. Sitchin interpreted this divine essence as Anunnaki DNA, and the clay as the genetic material of an existing primitive hominid on Earth. The goal was to create a hybrid being, strong enough for labor, yet intelligent enough to follow instructions. The first attempts, according to the myths, were not perfect. Some creatures were deformed, unable to function, but eventually they succeeded. The new being was called the Adamu, a term that Sitchin linked to the biblical Adam, suggesting a direct connection to the Genesis story of creation. This Adamu was Homo sapiens, us. The Epic of Atrahasis vividly describes the process. They mixed the clay in the midst of the Abzu. Nin-Hersag opened her mouth and said to Enki, "I have carried out the work of creation. I have mixed the heart of a god with the clay of the earth." This, for ancient astronaut theorists, is not poetry, but a literal account of genetic engineering, the heart of a god being the genetic material, and the clay being the raw biological components of a primitive earth creature. The newly created humans were initially mute, unable to communicate effectively. The Anunnaki, particularly Enki, then bestowed upon them the ability to speak, to reason, and to understand. This breath of life, or spark of consciousness, as interpreted by Sitchin, was not just a spiritual gift, but a further refinement of their genetic programming, giving humanity its unique cognitive abilities. This made them not just laborers, but beings capable of learning and evolving. The implications of this creation story are profound. If true, it means humanity did not evolve solely through natural selection. Our intelligence, our capacity for language, our drive to build and create, all might be a direct inheritance from an extraterrestrial source. It would mean we are, quite literally, a hybrid species with a genetic lineage that stretches beyond Earth. Once created, humanity's primary purpose was to serve the Anunnaki. They were put to work in the mines, digging for gold, and also in the fields, providing food for their creators. The early Sumerian texts are filled with references to humans serving the gods, building their temples, and offering them sustenance. This was not just religious devotion, it was, in this what-if scenario, a functional relationship. Humans were the workforce, and the Anunnaki were their masters. But the Anunnaki didn't just create humans for labor. They also, according to Sitchin, imparted knowledge. This explains the sudden and inexplicable leap in Sumerian civilization. How did a society, seemingly out of nowhere, develop sophisticated writing, cuneiform, advanced mathematics, a base 60 system that still influences our time and circles today, intricate astronomy, knowledge of planetary orbits and celestial mechanics that far exceeded what could be observed with the naked eye? Proponents of the ancient astronaut theory argue that this knowledge was not independently invented by humans, but was taught to them by the Anunnaki. Enki, often depicted as the god of wisdom and crafts, is seen as the primary teacher. He taught humans how to irrigate fields, how to smelt metals, how to construct buildings, and how to organize their societies into city-states. This rapid transfer of knowledge would explain the explosion of civilization in Sumer. Consider the Sumerian understanding of the solar system. Their astronomical texts and cylinder seals depict a solar system with all the planets we know today, including Uranus and Neptune, which were only discovered with telescopes in modern times. They even depicted a large, unidentifiable planet beyond Pluto, which Sitchin identified as Nibiru. How could an ancient civilization, without advanced telescopes, possess such detailed and accurate knowledge of our solar system? For ancient astronaut theorists, the answer is simple. They were told. The construction of the massive ziggurats, towering step pyramids that served as temples, also raises questions. While human labor was undoubtedly involved, the precision of their construction, the sheer scale, and the apparent understanding of architectural principles seem remarkably advanced for such an early period. Could the Anunnaki have provided the blueprints, the tools, or even direct assistance in their construction, perhaps using technologies that allowed them to move massive stones with ease? The very concept of divine kingship in Sumer also takes on a new meaning in this context. Early Sumerian rulers were not just kings. They were seen as direct intermediaries between humanity and the gods. Their authority was derived from the Anunnaki, and they often claimed direct lineage or special favor from these powerful beings. This could be interpreted not as a religious metaphor, but as a literal hierarchy established by the Anunnaki, with human kings acting as their appointed administrators on Earth. The Sumerian king list, an ancient text that lists kings of Sumer and their supposed reign lengths, also contains intriguing anomalies. Some early kings are listed with impossibly long reigns, lasting tens of thousands of years. While mainstream scholars dismiss these as mythical exaggerations, ancient astronaut theorists suggest they might refer to the reigns of the Anunnaki themselves, or of early human rulers who lived extraordinarily long lives due to Anunnaki genetic manipulation or technology. The what-if of the Anunnaki's arrival and their role in creation forces us to reconsider the very nature of human progress. Was it a slow, organic process, or was it punctuated by sudden, dramatic interventions? If our ancestors were indeed engineered, what does that say about our inherent potential, our limitations, and our place in the cosmic order? It suggests that our intelligence, our creativity, and even our spiritual aspirations might be echoes of a non-terrestrial lineage. This perspective also raises ethical questions. If we were created as a workforce, does that imply a continued purpose? Are we still in some sense serving an unseen agenda? And what responsibilities did our creators have towards us? The Sumerian texts, even in their mythological form, often depict the Anunnaki as having complex relationships with humanity, sometimes benevolent, sometimes harsh, but always deeply involved. The idea of a sudden advanced civilization appearing almost fully formed in Sumer is a puzzle that has fascinated scholars for centuries. The speed with which writing, mathematics, astronomy, and complex social structures emerged seems to defy conventional evolutionary timelines. For those who entertain the what-if of the Anunnaki, this sudden leap is not a mystery, but a logical consequence of advanced beings sharing their knowledge and technology. The very concept of the Adamu and their creation is a mind-bending thought experiment. If we are the product of genetic engineering, then our origins are far more complex and perhaps more deliberate than we ever imagined. It would mean that the story of humanity is not just an earthbound tale, but a chapter in a much larger cosmic saga. This chapter has explored the radical idea that the Anunnaki arrived on Earth, not as ethereal gods, but as advanced beings with a specific agenda. It has delved into the controversial claim of their genetic manipulation of early hominids to create Homo sapiens, and their alleged role in kickstarting human civilization with advanced knowledge. The implications are staggering, challenging our understanding of evolution, history, and our very identity. The next time you look at a Sumerian tablet or ponder the sudden rise of ancient civilization, remember the what-if. Could these seemingly fantastical tales of gods descending from the heavens, creating humanity, and bestowing knowledge hold a kernel of truth hidden in plain sight? If humans were indeed engineered, what does that say about our origins, our purpose, and the very nature of consciousness. The answers to these questions, if the Anunnaki were real, are still unfolding, echoing from the ancient past into our present. With humanity now created, a workforce for the Anunnaki's gold mining operations, the stage was set for a new era on Earth. If the Anunnaki were indeed real, and if they had engineered Homo sapiens for labor, then their next logical step would be to organize this new species. This period following the initial creation would have been a golden age of direct Anunnaki influence, where the gods not only oversaw their minds, but also actively shaped the very fabric of human society, laying the groundwork for the first true civilizations. Imagine the early human settlements, no longer just scattered groups of hunter-gatherers, but now organized communities, guided by beings far superior in intellect and technology. The Sumerian texts speak of the Anunnaki establishing cities, assigning duties, and setting up systems of governance. This wasn't just a passive observation, it was an active, hands-on approach to managing their newly created workforce and the resources of Earth. The concept of the city-state, which is a hallmark of Sumerian civilization, takes on a new meaning in this what-if scenario. Each major Sumerian city, like Uruk, Lagash, and Nippur, was believed to be under the patronage of a specific Anunnaki deity. For example, Uruk was dedicated to Inanna, Ishtar, and Nippur to Enlil. This wasn't just a religious affiliation. If the Anunnaki were real, these cities might have been administrative centers, each overseen by a specific Anunnaki lord, managing their designated territories and human populations. The most striking aspect of this period would be the establishment of divine kingship. Early Sumerian rulers, the first kings, did not simply seize power. They claimed their authority directly from the Anunnaki. They were seen as chosen by the gods, their legitimacy stemming from a direct connection to these powerful beings. This could be interpreted not as a clever political maneuver, but as a literal appointment. The Anunnaki, needing human intermediaries to manage their growing workforce and vast territories, would have selected certain individuals, perhaps those with specific genetic traits or greater intelligence, to act as their earthly representatives. These human kings would have been more than just religious figures. They would have been administrators, military leaders, and judges, carrying out the will of their Anunnaki overlords. The grand temples, or ziggurats, that dominated the Sumerian cityscapes were not just places of worship. They were, in this context, the residences or administrative centers of the Anunnaki themselves, or at least their primary points of contact with humanity. The king would perform rituals and duties within these temples, effectively communicating with and receiving instructions from the gods. Beyond governance, the Anunnaki would have imparted knowledge, and this is where the Golden Age truly shines. The sudden explosion of advanced knowledge in Sumer defies conventional historical explanations. How did a society, in a relatively short period, develop writing, complex mathematics, sophisticated astronomy, and intricate engineering? The ancient astronaut theory suggests this knowledge was not independently invented by humans, but was taught to them by their alien creators. Consider writing, cuneiform. The wedge-shaped script of Sumer is one of the oldest known forms of writing. Its complexity and efficiency are remarkable. If the Anunnaki needed to communicate instructions to their human workforce, a standardized system of writing would be essential. Enki, often depicted as the god of wisdom and crafts, is seen as the primary teacher. He would have taught humans how to record information, how to keep track of resources, and how to transmit knowledge across generations. This direct instruction would explain the rapid development and widespread adoption of cuneiform. Mathematics is another area where Sumerian knowledge was astonishingly advanced. They developed a base 60 numerical system, which is still evident in our measurement of time: 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, and circles 360 degrees. This system allowed for complex calculations and was far more sophisticated than what might be expected from a nascent civilization. If the Anunnaki were engineers and miners, they would have needed precise mathematical tools for their operations. Teaching this system to humans would have been crucial for managing resources, building structures, and even tracking celestial movements. And then there is astronomy. The Sumerians possessed an uncanny understanding of our solar system. Their cylinder seals and texts depict all the planets, including Uranus and Neptune, which are invisible to the naked eye and were only discovered by modern telescopes in the 18th and 19th centuries. They even depicted a large elliptical planet beyond Pluto, which Zecharia Sitchin identified as Nibiru, the alleged home planet of the Anunnaki. How could an ancient civilization, without advanced optical instruments, have such accurate and detailed knowledge of the outer solar system? The ancient astronaut hypothesis provides a simple yet radical answer. They were told the Anunnaki, having traveled through space, would have possessed this knowledge and shared it with their human charges, perhaps to help them track celestial cycles, or simply as part of a broader educational program. Engineering and architecture also saw unprecedented advancements. The construction of massive ziggurats, towering step pyramids built from millions of sun-dried bricks, required immense organization, planning, and a deep understanding of structural integrity. While human labor was undoubtedly used, the precision and scale of these projects suggest a guiding hand with superior knowledge. Could the Anunnaki have provided the blueprints, the advanced tools, or even demonstrated techniques for moving massive stones that we are only now beginning to understand? The sheer efficiency and monumental scale of these early constructions hint at a technological assistance that goes beyond simple human ingenuity. The Sumerian texts also speak of the Me, often translated as divine decrees or cosmic laws. These Me were seen as fundamental principles that govern the universe, society, and technology. Enki, in particular, was associated with the collection and distribution of these Me. If the Anunnaki were real, the Me could be interpreted as advanced scientific principles, technological blueprints, or even social operating systems that the Anunnaki used to organize their own civilization and then imparted to humanity. They were not just abstract concepts, but practical guidelines for living and building. The relationship between the Anunnaki and humanity during this period was complex. While humans were created as a workforce, the texts also show moments of genuine interaction, mentorship, and even affection. Enki, in particular, often acted as a protector and benefactor of humanity, sometimes even defying the decisions of his brother Enlil, who was often depicted as more stern and demanding. This suggests that the Anunnaki were not a monolithic entity, but had their own internal dynamics, rivalries, and disagreements, mirroring human dramas on a cosmic scale. These internal conflicts among the Anunnaki are crucial to understanding their influence. The Sumerian myths are filled with stories of power struggles, jealousies, and strategic maneuvering between figures like Enlil and Enki. These weren't just petty squabbles, they had profound impacts on human destiny. For example, the rivalry over who would control certain territories or who would receive the allegiance of human populations could have led to shifts in power among human city-states, with different Anunnaki patrons supporting different human leaders. The concept of divine presence in the cities was very real for the Sumerians. They believed the Anunnaki physically resided in their temples. The daily rituals, the offerings of food and drink, were not just symbolic acts of worship. They were seen as literal sustenance for the gods. If the Anunnaki were physical beings, these rituals might have been a way for humans to provide for their needs, maintain their presence, and receive their continued guidance and protection. This functional relationship would have cemented the Anunnaki's position as the ultimate authority and providers. The Sumerian texts also describe the Anunnaki's advanced vehicles and technology in more detail during this period. They speak of Mu or Shem, often translated as sky chambers or fire-emitting objects, which ancient astronaut theorists interpret as spacecraft. These vehicles allowed the Anunnaki to travel between their various outposts on Earth, to ascend to their orbital stations, and to communicate with their home planet. Such technology would have been awe-inspiring to early humans, cementing the Anunnaki status as gods. The very organization of human society into specialized roles, farmers, scribes, priests, soldiers, craftsmen, could also be seen as a direct result of Anunnaki planning. to efficiently extract gold and manage resources, a division of labor would be necessary. The Anunnaki, with their advanced understanding of social engineering, would have implemented systems that maximized productivity and maintained order among the human population. This laid the foundation for the complex social structures that would characterize all future civilizations. The Sumerian obsession with record-keeping, evident in the vast number of administrative tablets discovered, also points to an Anunnaki influence. If they were managing a large-scale operation, detailed records of resources, labor, and production would be essential. They would have instilled this discipline in their human administrators, leading to the development of sophisticated accounting systems and bureaucratic structures. This golden age of Anunnaki influence would have lasted for a significant period, perhaps thousands of years, as suggested by the impossibly long reigns of early kings in the Sumerian king list, which Sitchin attributes to the Anunnaki themselves, or their direct descendants. During this time, humanity would have been guided, taught, and managed, experiencing an accelerated development that would have been impossible on its own. The idea that our earliest civilizations were not purely indigenous creations, but were fostered by extraterrestrial mentors, is a powerful one. It challenges the notion of human exceptionalism and suggests a cosmic connection to our past. If the Anunnaki truly provided the blueprints for our cities, the knowledge for our sciences, and the very spark of our intelligence, then their legacy is far more profound than we have ever dared to imagine. This period of direct interaction would have shaped human consciousness in fundamental ways. The concept of gods who physically walked among them, who commanded them, and who provided for them would have been ingrained in the human psyche. This experience would have laid the foundation for all future religious beliefs, with the memory of these powerful visitors slowly transforming into the abstract deities of later pantheons. The Sumerian texts are not just stories, they are, in this what-if scenario, a historical archive of humanity's early relationship with its creators. They describe a time when the veil between the human and the divine was thin, when the architects of civilization were physically present, guiding humanity's every step. This direct mentorship would explain the rapid advancements, the complex social structures, and the profound knowledge that appeared so suddenly in ancient Sumer. The lingering question, then, is not just whether these advanced beings existed, but what their ultimate goals were beyond the acquisition of gold. What kind of civilization were they trying to build on Earth? Were they merely exploiters, or did they have a grander vision for humanity? The answers, if the Anunnaki were real, are woven into the very fabric of our earliest history, waiting to be deciphered from the ancient clay. This golden age of influence, where kingdoms were established and knowledge was imparted, sets the stage for the dramatic events that would follow, events that would test the very relationship between humanity and its alleged creators. The golden age of Anunnaki influence, where humanity was guided and taught, could not last forever. Even for beings as advanced as the Anunnaki, challenges arose. The Sumerian texts, which have so far painted a picture of creation and mentorship, also speak of immense struggles, internal conflicts, and a cataclysmic event that reshaped the world, the Great Flood. If the Anunnaki were real, this period would mark a dramatic turning point, a time when their own disagreements had profound and devastating consequences for humanity. Imagine the Anunnaki, having established their operations and organized human society, now facing their own internal pressures. The Sumerian myths are filled with stories of rivalries and power struggles, particularly between the two most prominent leaders, Enlil and Enki. Enlil, the Lord of Command, was often depicted as stern, rigid, and sometimes harsh. He was concerned with order and the strict adherence to rules. Enki, the Lord of Wisdom, was more compassionate, often finding loopholes and showing a greater fondness for humanity. These differing personalities and agendas would, in this what-if scenario, lead to significant friction. The primary source of conflict often revolved around humanity itself. While humans were created for labor, their numbers grew and their presence on Earth became more significant. Some Anunnaki, like Enlil, found humanity to be noisy, troublesome, and a burden. The texts describe Enlil complaining about the clamor of mankind, finding their constant activity and reproduction irritating. This sentiment, if real, would set the stage for a drastic solution. The most famous and devastating event in this period is the Great Flood. Across countless cultures worldwide, from the Middle East to indigenous American tribes, there are stories of a massive deluge that wiped out almost all life on Earth. The Sumerian version of this story, found in texts like the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Epic of Atrahasis. If the Anunnaki were real, this flood was not a natural disaster, but a planned, deliberate event born from the internal conflicts of the gods. According to Zecharia Sitchin's interpretation, the decision to unleash the flood was made by the Anunnaki Council, largely at the insistence of Enlil. The reason, as presented in the texts, was humanity's increasing population and noise, which disturbed Enlil's peace. However, ancient astronaut theorists suggest there might have been deeper, more strategic reasons. Perhaps the Anunnaki were facing a new threat, or perhaps they saw humanity as having served its purpose, or even as becoming too numerous and difficult to control. The flood, in this context, would have been a drastic measure to reset the Earth and its inhabitants. The texts describe how the Anunnaki swore an oath not to warn humanity of the impending disaster. This oath was crucial because it highlighted the division among them. While Enlil and the majority of the council wished for humanity's complete destruction, Enki, the creator of humanity, secretly defied this decision. His compassion for his creation led him to find a way to save a select few. Enki chose a righteous human named Ziusudra, known as Utnapishtim in the Gilgamesh epic and Noah in the Bible. He appeared to Ziusudra, not directly, but through a reed wall, whispering instructions. He told Ziusudra to build a large boat, to load it with his family, animals and the seeds of all living things, so that life could continue after the flood. This secret act of defiance by Enki against his brother Enlil and the council's decree is a central theme, showcasing the profound internal divisions within the Anunnaki ranks. The construction of the Ark, as described in the Sumerian texts, involved precise measurements and materials, suggesting a level of engineering knowledge that Ziusudra, a mere mortal, would not possess on his own. If Enki was indeed guiding him, he would have provided the necessary blueprints and knowledge, ensuring the vessel was capable of surviving the immense deluge. This again points to the Anunnaki's advanced understanding of physics and construction. When the flood finally came, it was catastrophic. The texts describe a terrifying storm, with winds and rains raging for days and nights. The sky chambers, or Mu, of the Anunnaki are depicted ascending into the heavens, watching the devastation unfold from above. The gods themselves are shown to be terrified by the scale of the destruction, realizing the immense power they had unleashed. Some even wept, regretting their decision to wipe out humanity. This emotional response, if literal, further humanizes the Anunnaki, showing them capable of fear and remorse. The flood wiped out almost all life on Earth, submerging the land and destroying the burgeoning human civilization that the Anunnaki had helped to build. Only Ziusudra and those on his ark survived, floating on the vast turbulent waters. This event would have been a global reset, a cataclysm that erased much of the Anunnaki's direct influence and the early human societies they had fostered. After the waters receded, Ziusudra's ark landed, and life slowly began anew. The Anunnaki, descending from their sky chambers, were astonished and angered to find survivors. Enlil, in particular, was furious that his decree had been defied. He confronted Enki, demanding to know who had leaked the secret. It was only after Enki confessed his role, and after Ziusudra offered sacrifices to the Anunnaki, that a new understanding was reached. This post-flood period marked a significant shift in the relationship between the Anunnaki and humanity. While humanity was allowed to continue, the Anunnaki imposed new rules. They decided that humans would no longer live for impossibly long lifespans, as some of the earliest humans might have done, due to Anunnaki genetic traits. They introduced the concept of death and limited human reproduction, ensuring that humanity would not again become too numerous or troublesome. This was a form of control, a way to manage the species they had created. The flood also had profound geographical consequences. The text suggests that the Anunnaki had established various spaceports and key installations around the world, not just in Mesopotamia. The flood would have destroyed many of these, forcing the Anunnaki to reassess their operations and possibly relocate. This might explain the sudden appearance of advanced cultures in other parts of the world after the flood, as the Anunnaki survivors established new centers of influence. The internal conflicts among the Anunnaki did not end with the flood. In fact, they intensified. The Epic of Error, for instance, describes a devastating war among the Anunnaki themselves, using powerful weapons that could destroy cities. These wars of the gods, as interpreted by ancient astronaut theorists, were not just mythological battles, but actual conflicts fought with advanced weaponry, perhaps even nuclear-like devices, leaving behind evidence of widespread destruction in the ancient landscape. One of the most significant conflicts after the flood involved the division of Earth's territories among the Anunnaki factions. Enlil's lineage and Enki's lineage each claimed dominion over different parts of the planet. This division would have directly impacted the human populations under their respective patrons, leading to different cultural developments and, potentially, to human wars fought on behalf of their Anunnaki overlords. The conflicts among humans, then, might have been echoes of deeper cosmic rivalries. The Sumerian texts also speak of a Tower of Babel incident, where humanity, united and speaking one language, attempted to build a tower that would reach the heavens. If the Anunnaki were real, this could be interpreted as humanity attempting to reach their creators, or perhaps even attempting to replicate Anunnaki technology. The Anunnaki, fearing humanity's growing power and unity, intervened. They confused their tongues, creating different languages and scattering humanity across the earth. This act, if literal, was a deliberate measure to prevent humanity from becoming too powerful or too unified, ensuring their continued subservience. This period of cataclysm and conflict transformed the Anunnaki's relationship with humanity, from direct mentorship to a more distant, supervisory role. While they still maintained control, their physical presence might have become less common, and their interactions with humans more formalized through the institution of divine kingship. Humanity was now tasked with rebuilding civilization, but under the watchful eye of beings who had demonstrated their willingness to wipe out their creation if it became too unruly. The psychological impact of the flood on humanity would have been immense. The memory of such a devastating event and the knowledge that their gods were capable of such destruction would have deeply ingrained fear and reverence. This fear would have reinforced the need for obedience and ritual, ensuring humanity remained subservient to their powerful creators. The what-if of the Great Flood, being a deliberate act by the Anunnaki, born from their internal conflicts, forces us to reconsider the nature of divine judgment. Was it a moral reckoning, or a strategic decision by an advanced civilization? The story, when viewed through this lens, becomes less about faith and more about power dynamics between species. The aftermath of the flood also saw the re-establishment of civilization, but with a renewed emphasis on order and control. The Anunnaki would have guided humanity in rebuilding cities, re-establishing agriculture, and developing new technologies, but always within the parameters they set. This period would have been characterized by a more structured and hierarchical relationship, with human kings acting as direct conduits for Anunnaki commands. The Sumerian king list, which records kings who reigned after the flood, shows a return to more realistic, though still long, lifespans for human rulers. This supports the idea that the Anunnaki imposed limitations on human longevity after the cataclysm, ensuring that humanity would not again become too powerful or too independent. The conflicts among the Anunnaki also extended to their human proxies. The texts describe wars between different Sumerian city-states, often attributed to the rivalries between their patron deities. If the Anunnaki were real, these human wars could have been proxy conflicts, with different Anunnaki factions using human armies to fight their own battles for territory, resources, or influence on Earth. This would add a chilling layer to ancient human history, suggesting that our earliest wars were not always our own. This chapter has explored the dramatic shift in the Anunnaki-human relationship, from a golden age of direct influence to a period marked by cataclysm and conflict. The Great Flood, in this what-if scenario, becomes a pivotal event, a deliberate act of destruction born from the internal struggles of the Anunnaki. It highlights their power, their divisions, and their willingness to reshape Earth and humanity according to their own needs and desires. The implications are profound. If our history includes such a devastating intervention, then the very concept of human resilience and survival takes on a new meaning. It suggests that humanity has endured not just natural disasters, but deliberate attempts at control, and even eradication by its alleged creators. The echoes of these ancient conflicts, if the Anunnaki were real, still resonate in our myths, and perhaps even in our collective unconscious, shaping our understanding of power, survival, and our place in a universe far more complex than we can imagine. The stage is now set for the Anunnaki's eventual retreat, leaving humanity to navigate a world forever changed by their presence and their devastating conflicts. The cataclysm of the Great Flood and the subsequent conflicts among the Anunnaki themselves marked a profound shift in their relationship with humanity. If the Anunnaki were real, their direct, hands-on involvement in human affairs, which characterized the Golden Age, began to wane. This period saw their gradual retreat, a lessening of their physical presence, but not an end to their influence. Instead, their legacy would echo across the globe, particularly in the enigmatic civilization of ancient Egypt, leaving behind clues and mysteries that persist to this day. Imagine a world slowly recovering from a global deluge. Humanity, though diminished, was allowed to continue, but under new, stricter conditions imposed by the Anunnaki. The long lifespans of early humans were curtailed, and their reproduction was limited. The Tower of Babel incident, if literal, further scattered humanity and fragmented their language, ensuring they would not again unite to challenge their creators. This was a strategic move by the Anunnaki to maintain control, transforming their role from active mentors to more distant overseers. But where did the Anunnaki go? The Sumerian texts become less explicit about their constant physical presence after the flood. This suggests a gradual withdrawal, perhaps due to their own planet's orbital cycle taking them further from Earth, or perhaps because their gold mining operations were sufficiently established, or even because they decided humanity had reached a point where it could largely manage itself, albeit under their watchful eye. Their retreat wasn't necessarily an abandonment, but a change in strategy, moving from direct governance to indirect influence. However, the memory of these powerful beings, these gods who from heaven to earth came, would not simply vanish. It would morph, adapt, and spread. As humanity dispersed across the globe, carrying the fragmented memories of their creators, new civilizations would rise, bearing striking resemblances to the Anunnaki-influenced Sumerian model. One of the most compelling examples of this is ancient Egypt. Consider the sudden emergence of sophisticated civilization along the Nile. Like summer, Egypt seemed to leap from primitive settlements to a highly organized, technologically advanced society in a remarkably short period. The sheer scale and precision of their monumental architecture, their profound understanding of astronomy, and their complex religious systems often lead to questions that conventional archaeology struggles to fully answer. If the Anunnaki were real, then Egypt was not just a parallel development, but a direct continuation of their influence, perhaps even a new base of operations for a different faction of the Anunnaki. The parallels between Egyptian deities and Anunnaki figures are striking, leading ancient astronaut theorists to suggest a direct lineage. For instance, the Egyptian god Osiris, associated with resurrection, agriculture, and kingship, shares many characteristics with Enki, the Sumerian god of wisdom, water, and creation, who also played a pivotal role in saving humanity and imparting knowledge. Thoth, the Egyptian god of writing, magic, wisdom, and the moon, finds a compelling counterpart in the Sumerian Ningishida, who was also associated with knowledge, writing, and even genetic manipulation. If these were not mere coincidences, then the Egyptian pantheon could be seen as a reinterpretation of the Anunnaki, adapted to a new culture and a new land. The most enduring mystery of ancient Egypt, and a frequent point of focus for ancient astronaut theory, is the construction of the pyramids. particularly the Great Pyramid of Giza. The sheer size of the stones, some weighing many tons, and the incredible precision with which they are cut and placed, continues to baffle engineers today. The alignment of the pyramids with celestial bodies, and the advanced mathematical and astronomical knowledge embedded within their design, seem far beyond the capabilities of a Bronze Age civilization. If the Anunnakis were real, then these structures were not just tombs for pharaohs, but perhaps power generators, communication devices, or even markers left by an advanced civilization. The idea that the Anunnaki provided the blueprints or even direct technological assistance for these monumental constructions is a central tenet of this what-if scenario. Their advanced engineering skills, evident in Sumerian texts, would have been more than capable of aiding in such projects. Perhaps they used anti-gravity devices, sonic levitation, or other technologies that allowed them to move and place massive stones with ease. The precision of the pyramid blocks, fitting together with tolerances finer than a human hair, suggests a level of technology that seems alien to the period. Beyond the pyramids, ancient Egypt's astronomical knowledge was profound. They had a sophisticated understanding of the stars, the movements of planets, and the concept of cycles that span thousands of years. Their temples and monuments were often aligned with specific celestial events, indicating a deep connection to the cosmos. If the Anunnaki had imparted astronomical knowledge to the Sumerians, it is logical to assume they would have continued to do so with the Egyptians, perhaps even using these alignments as navigational aids or as a way to track the orbital return of Nibiru. The concept of divine pharaohs in Egypt also echoes the divine kingship of Sumer. Pharaohs were not just rulers, they were considered living gods, direct descendants of the deities, or at least chosen by them. This could be interpreted as a continuation of the Anunnaki's system of appointing human intermediaries to govern their territories. Certain pharaohs might have had a more direct genetic link to the Anunnaki, or perhaps were chosen for their intelligence and leadership qualities, making them ideal administrators for the alien overlords. The royal bloodlines, then, might have been a way to preserve a specific genetic heritage or a direct line of communication with the retreating Anunnaki. The reasons for the Anunnaki's eventual departure or reduced direct involvement are speculative. One theory is that their home planet, Nibiru, continued its long orbital journey, taking it further away from Earth, making direct intervention less feasible. Another is that they had achieved their primary objective, the acquisition of gold, and no longer needed a constant presence. Yet another suggests that the internal conflicts among the Anunnaki became so severe that they decided to withdraw from Earth to resolve their own issues, leaving humanity to its own devices. However, their retreat was not absolute. The what-if suggests that while their physical presence diminished, their influence continued through various means. This could include leaving behind advanced technologies, esoteric knowledge, or even a select group of hybrid descendants who would continue to guide humanity from behind the scenes. The Egyptian priesthood, with its secret knowledge and rituals, could be seen as guardians of this Anunnaki legacy, preserving the wisdom and technologies passed down from their gods. The construction of underground tunnels, hidden chambers, and secret libraries in Egypt and other ancient sites could be interpreted as places where Anunnaki knowledge or technology was stored, waiting to be rediscovered. The Hall of Records beneath the Sphinx, a legendary chamber often spoken of in esoteric circles, could be one such repository, containing the true history of humanity's interaction with the Anunnaki. As the Anunnaki retreated, the memory of their physical presence would have slowly faded, transforming into myth and legend. The powerful beings who once walked among humans, issuing commands and imparting knowledge, would become abstract gods, worshipped from afar. Their advanced technology would be forgotten or misinterpreted, seen as magic or divine power, rather than scientific achievement. This process of ephemerism, where historical figures or events are transformed into myths, would explain how the Anunnaki became the deities of later religions. The what-if of the Anunnaki's influence, extending beyond Mesopotamia to Egypt and other ancient civilizations, provides a compelling, if controversial, explanation for the sudden bursts of advanced knowledge and monumental construction that appear across the ancient world. It suggests a global pattern of extraterrestrial intervention rather than isolated instances of human genius. The similarities in flood myths, creation stories, and divine hierarchies across disparate cultures could be seen as echoes of a shared, non-terrestrial past. The disappearance of the Anunnaki from overt human interaction would have left a void, but also a legacy. Humanity, now with the seeds of civilization firmly planted, would be left to develop on its own, but always with the underlying influence of their creators. The drive for knowledge, the desire to build, and the spiritual yearning for something beyond themselves could all be seen as lingering traits inherited from their Anunnaki heritage. This period of retreat would also mark the beginning of humanity's true independence, albeit an independence born from the Anunnaki's strategic withdrawal rather than a conscious human rebellion. Humanity would now be responsible for its own destiny, but with the profound, unspoken knowledge that its origins were not entirely its own. The pharaohs, claiming divine lineage, would rule over a populace that still remembered, however dimly, the true power of the gods who once walked the earth. The mysteries of ancient Egypt, from the precision of the pyramids to the advanced astronomical knowledge, become less inexplicable when viewed through the lens of Anunnaki influence. The sudden appearance of sophisticated medical practices, complex legal systems, and elaborate religious rituals could all be attributed to the lingering teachings of their former overseers. The very concept of mummification and the elaborate preparations for the afterlife might even be a distorted memory of Anunnaki understanding of consciousness or technology related to preserving life. This chapter has explored the fascinating idea that the Anunnaki, after the cataclysmic flood and their internal conflicts, gradually retreated from direct interaction with humanity. However, their influence did not vanish. Instead, it manifested in the sudden rise of other advanced civilizations, particularly ancient Egypt, where their legacy can be seen in the monumental architecture, the profound astronomical knowledge, and the concept of divine rulers. The what-if of the Anunnaki's retreat and their enduring echoes in Egypt and beyond forces us to consider that the story of humanity is not just an earthbound tale, but a cosmic drama with extraterrestrial architects. It suggests that while the gods may have left, their footprints remain, guiding humanity's journey through history, leaving behind clues for those willing to look beyond conventional narratives. The stage is now set for the long period of human history, where the Anunnaki's presence becomes increasingly veiled, transforming from physical beings into abstract myths, yet never truly disappearing from the collective consciousness. As the Anunnaki's direct presence on Earth diminished, and their home planet, Nibiru, continued its long, distant journey through space, a new era began for humanity. The memories of the gods who from heaven to earth came did not vanish entirely, but they began to change. What was once a tangible, physical interaction slowly transformed into something more abstract, more spiritual. This was the period when the veil of myth descended, obscuring the true nature of the Anunnaki and reshaping them into the deities of later religions. Imagine a world where generations passed. The people who had seen the sky chariots, who had spoken directly with Enlil and Enki, grew old and died. Their children and grandchildren heard the stories, but they were now second-hand accounts. Over time, the precise details of technology, the physical descriptions of the Anunnaki, and the practical reasons for their presence began to fade. What remained were the awe-inspiring feats, the immense power, and the profound wisdom attributed to these beings. This process is known as euhemerism. It's a concept where historical figures, or in our what-if scenario, advanced extraterrestrial visitors, are gradually deified and transformed into gods or mythical heroes. The extraordinary events they caused or the advanced technologies they wielded became interpreted as magic or divine miracles. A flying vehicle became a winged chariot, a powerful energy weapon became a thunderbolt, and genetic manipulation became a miraculous act of creation. Language itself played a crucial role in this transformation. As human languages evolved and diverged, the precise meanings of ancient Sumerian terms related to Anunnaki technology or their physical attributes might have been lost or misinterpreted. A word that once described a complex machine might, over centuries come to mean a magical artifact. The nuances of their social structure or their scientific principles could have been simplified into moral tales or religious dogma. Consider the detailed descriptions of Anunnaki residences and their sky chambers in early Sumerian texts. These were often described with specific materials and functions. As time passed, these descriptions became more generalized, more ethereal. A house in the heavens might no longer be understood as an orbiting space station, but as a celestial realm beyond human reach. The very tangible gods who ate, drank, and had families would slowly become omnipresent, omniscient beings, detached from earthly concerns. The cultural shifts that occurred as humanity dispersed also contributed to this veiling of truth. As different groups settled in new lands, they adapted the core stories of the Anunnaki to their own environments and emerging beliefs. The Sumerian pantheon, with its specific names and roles, might have been reinterpreted as Egyptian gods, Greek titans, or even later, as the angels and demons of monotheistic traditions. The essence of their power and influence remained, but their origins became increasingly obscured. For example, the Sumerian god Enki, the benevolent creator and bringer of knowledge, finds echoes in the Egyptian god Thoth, the Greek god Prometheus, or even the biblical figure who defied the divine council to help humanity. The stern Enlil, who brought the flood, might be seen in the wrathful deities of various pantheons. These parallels are often dismissed as cultural convergences, but in our what-if scenario, they are evidence of a shared deep-seated memory of the Anunnaki. Why would the Anunnaki allow this transformation? One possibility is that it was a deliberate strategy on their part. As they retreated, they might have intentionally fostered the idea of themselves as abstract gods, rather than physical beings. This would have allowed them to maintain a degree of control and reverence from humanity, without the need for constant physical presence or direct intervention. By becoming mythical figures, they could still influence human behavior through religious doctrine and fear of divine retribution, even from afar. Another reason for deliberate secrecy could be the protection of their own advanced technology. As humanity grew in numbers and capabilities, the Anunnaki might have feared that humans would attempt to replicate or misuse their powerful devices. By transforming their technology into magic, they would have created a barrier of misunderstanding, ensuring that humans would not stumble upon or decipher the true nature of their scientific prowess. The rise of organized religion, with its emphasis on faith and dogma, also played a significant role in this veiling process. As human societies became more complex, religious institutions emerged, interpreting the ancient stories and establishing rituals. These institutions often had a vested interest in maintaining a specific narrative about the gods, one that reinforced their own power and authority. Any literal interpretations that suggested the gods were once physical beings might have been actively suppressed or reinterpreted to fit the evolving religious framework. The very act of worship, which began as a functional relationship to provide for the Anunnaki's needs, transformed into a spiritual devotion. The offerings of food and drink became symbolic sacrifices. The prayers became pleas to an unseen, all-powerful entity. The memory of the Anunnaki's physical presence faded, replaced by a profound sense of the divine, a feeling of awe and wonder at a power beyond human comprehension. Consider the ancient temples and sacred sites. While they might have originally served as Anunnaki residences or technological installations, over time they became purely places of worship, their original function forgotten. The rituals performed within them, which might have once been practical interactions with advanced beings, became symbolic acts of reverence. The priests, who might have once been direct intermediaries with the Anunnaki, became interpreters of divine will and guardians of sacred mysteries. The challenge of discerning truth from myth in ancient texts becomes immense in this context. How do we separate the literal accounts of extraterrestrial interactions from the layers of metaphor, allegory, and religious interpretation that have accumulated over millennia? Ancient astronaut theorists argue that by stripping away these layers, by reading the text literally rather than symbolically, the true story of the Anunnaki begins to emerge. For example, when the Sumerian texts describe gods flying or ascending to the heavens, Mainstream scholars interpret this as a metaphor for spiritual transcendence. But if the Anunnaki were real and possessed advanced spacecraft, then these descriptions could be literal accounts of their movements. The fire and smoke associated with their descents could be the exhaust from their engines. The noise could be the roar of their vehicles. The long lifespans attributed to early human patriarchs in various ancient texts, including the Bible, also become less mythical in this what-if scenario. If the Anunnaki had genetically engineered humanity, they might have initially granted them longer lifespans, perhaps as a side effect of their own longevity, or to ensure a stable workforce over extended periods. As the Anunnaki retreated and imposed new conditions after the flood, these lifespans were curtailed, leading to the shorter human lives we know today. The memory of these long-lived ancestors would then become a part of the mythical past, a golden age that was lost. The concept of chosen people, or divine bloodlines, also finds a new interpretation. If certain human lineages had a more direct genetic link to the Anunnaki, or were specifically chosen by them to rule and administer, then the idea of a royal bloodline or a priestly caste being distinct from common humanity could be a lingering memory of this genetic and social hierarchy established by the Anunnaki. These lineages might have secretly preserved knowledge or maintained a connection to their extraterrestrial ancestors. The what-if of the veil of myth descending forces us to confront the possibility that much of what we consider religious belief or ancient folklore is in fact a distorted memory of a historical reality. It suggests that our spiritual yearning, our belief in higher powers, might be an echo of a time when higher powers physically walked among us. The stories of gods intervening in human affairs, performing miracles, and dictating laws could be historical accounts of advanced beings shaping our destiny. This transformation from physical beings to abstract deities was not a sudden event, but a gradual process occurring over thousands of years. As human societies grew and diversified, so too did their interpretations of the Anunnaki. The original, unified memory fragmented into countless myths and legends, each reflecting a piece of the original truth, but none containing the full picture. The very act of worship, which became central to human life, could be seen as a lingering instinct, a programmed response to beings who once commanded their obedience. The elaborate rituals, the sacrifices, the prayers, all could be distorted echoes of the functional relationship between humanity and its creators. The challenge for modern humanity, then, is to peel back these layers of myth. It requires a willingness to question deeply ingrained beliefs and to look at ancient texts with a new, open mind. It means considering the possibility that the fantastical elements of ancient stories are not just products of primitive imagination, but literal descriptions of events that defy our current understanding of history and technology. If the Anunnaki were real and their presence became veiled by myth, then the greatest untold story of human history is hidden in plain sight, disguised as religious dogma and cultural folklore. It suggests that humanity, over time, forgot the true origins of those who once walked among them, transforming advanced beings into ethereal deities. The implications are profound, inviting us to reconsider the very nature of belief, the origins of religion, and the true meaning of our ancient past. This chapter has explored the fascinating process by which the physical presence of the Anunnaki gradually faded from human memory, transforming into the abstract deities of myth and religion. It suggests that the veil of myth was not just a natural consequence of time, but perhaps a deliberate strategy by the Anunnaki themselves to maintain control and protect their secrets. The stage is now set for the enduring legacy of the Anunnaki, even in their absence, and the potential for humanity to rediscover these hidden truths. The veil of myth, which descended over millennia, effectively obscured the physical reality of the Anunnaki, transforming them from tangible beings into abstract deities. Yet, if the what-if of their existence holds true, their influence did not simply vanish with their retreat or their transformation into folklore. Instead, their legacy would continue to resonate, woven into the very fabric of human consciousness, subtly shaping our development and leaving behind clues for those willing to look beyond conventional narratives. This final chapter explores the enduring impact of the Anunnaki and the profound implications for humanity's future, including the potential for rediscovering these hidden truths. Imagine humanity, left to its own devices after the Anunnaki's departure, but not entirely alone. The seeds of civilization, planted by their creators, continued to grow. The knowledge imparted of agriculture, writing, mathematics, and astronomy became the foundation upon which all subsequent human progress was built. Even as the memory of their physical teachers faded, the intellectual and technological momentum they initiated propelled humanity forward. This suggests that our inherent drive for innovation, our insatiable curiosity, and our capacity for complex thought might not be purely indigenous, but a direct inheritance from our alleged extraterrestrial architects. This inherited spark, perhaps a subtle genetic programming or a deep-seated cultural memory, could explain why human civilization, despite its setbacks, consistently rediscovered and advanced upon foundational principles that seem to appear almost spontaneously in ancient Sumer. One of the most profound implications of the Anunnaki what-if scenario is its impact on human identity. If we were indeed genetically engineered, a hybrid species combining primitive hominid DNA with that of an advanced extraterrestrial race, then our very essence is cosmic. This would mean that the spiritual yearning, the sense of being part of something larger than ourselves, and the intuitive belief in a higher power might not just be a psychological construct, but a deep-seated memory, a genetic echo of our Anunnaki lineage. Our consciousness, then, could be seen as a unique blend of earthly evolution and extraterrestrial intelligence. This blend might manifest as an inherent curiosity about the cosmos, a drive to explore beyond our planet, or even an inexplicable connection to certain celestial bodies or cycles that were significant to our creators. The very notion of a soul or spirit could be a philosophical interpretation of this inherent cosmic component within our genetic makeup. This idea gives rise to the concept of star seeds or awakened consciousness. If a portion of humanity carries a more direct genetic or energetic link to the Anunnaki, then certain individuals might possess an innate understanding of cosmic principles, a heightened intuition, or a natural inclination towards advanced knowledge. These individuals might feel a sense of not quite belonging on Earth, a longing for something more, which could be interpreted as a subconscious memory of their extraterrestrial origins. This would explain the sudden emergence of gifted individuals throughout history, those who seem to possess knowledge beyond their time, pushing humanity forward in leaps and bounds. Think of figures like Leonardo da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, or even ancient philosophers and mathematicians whose insights seem to transcend the knowledge base of their eras. Were they simply geniuses, or were they individuals whose Anunnaki genetic predispositions were more pronounced, allowing them to access deeper layers of inherited knowledge or intuition? The enduring mysteries of ancient archaeological sites also take on new meaning in this context. Beyond the pyramids of Egypt, consider the megalithic structures of Baalbek in Lebanon, with their impossibly large, precisely cut stones, some weighing over 1,000 tons, moved and placed with a precision that defies known ancient technology. Or the Nazca lines in Peru, massive geoglyphs visible only from the air, seemingly designed for aerial observation, perhaps as markers for Anunnaki flight paths or communication with their orbiting craft. Or the intricate, precise stonework of Pumapunku in Bolivia, with its interlocking blocks that defy conventional explanations of ancient craftsmanship, suggesting the use of advanced cutting tools and a knowledge of engineering far beyond the supposed capabilities of its builders. If the Anunnaki were real, these sites could be more than just ancient ruins. They could be remnants of their global operations, their landing sites, their power stations, or even their forgotten laboratories, strategically placed across the planet to manage resources or monitor human development. The anomalies at these sites, often dismissed as unexplainable, become compelling evidence of a non-human presence. The idea of dormant Anunnaki technology awaiting rediscovery is a captivating one. If they possessed advanced devices for energy, communication, or even space travel, it is plausible that some of these were left behind, perhaps hidden in underground chambers, in remote, inaccessible locations, or even disguised as natural formations. The legends of ancient artifacts with incredible powers, like the Ark of the Covenant or the Vimanas of ancient India, or lost technologies that could revolutionize our world, might not be mere fantasy, but distorted memories of Anunnaki devices. The ongoing archaeological discoveries, often revealing anomalies that challenge established timelines, could be seen as humanity slowly uncovering pieces of this forgotten technological legacy, perhaps even triggering a subconscious awakening to their true potential. The rapid advancements in modern science and technology, particularly in genetics, artificial intelligence, and space exploration, might also be viewed through an Anunnaki lens. Could humanity's inherent drive to push the boundaries of knowledge, to explore the cosmos, and to understand the very building blocks of life, be a subconscious emulation of their creators? Are we, in a sense, following a path laid out for us by our ancient mentors, driven by an inherited curiosity and a desire to return to the stars? Our current scientific trajectory, mirroring the very technologies and knowledge attributed to the Anunnaki in ancient texts, could be seen as a pre-programmed destiny, a return to our cosmic roots. The development of genetic engineering, for instance, echoes the very act of creation attributed to Enki and Ninhursag. The Sumerian texts, once dismissed as mere mythology, become crucial historical documents in this what-if scenario. They are not just stories, but a potential archive of humanity's true origins and its early interactions with an extraterrestrial civilization. The challenge for modern scholars and researchers is to strip away the layers of religious interpretation and cultural adaptation, to read these texts literally and to cross-reference them with archaeological evidence and scientific advancements. This interdisciplinary approach could unlock profound secrets about our past, revealing a narrative far more complex and thrilling than any conventional history book. The sheer volume of these texts and their consistent themes across different scribes and periods lends weight to the idea that they record actual events, however extraordinary. The concept of Nibiru, the alleged home planet of the Anunnaki, also remains a point of fascination. While mainstream astronomy does not recognize such a planet, the ongoing search for Planet 9 or other large distant objects in our solar system keeps the possibility alive. If Nibiru were to be rediscovered, or if evidence of its past orbital path were to be found, it would provide a monumental validation for the ancient astronaut hypothesis and fundamentally alter our understanding of our solar system and our place within it. Such a discovery would not only confirm the Anunnaki's existence, but also provide a tangible link to their origins, potentially revealing more about their civilization and their reasons for visiting Earth. The potential for future contact with the Anunnaki or other extraterrestrial civilizations is another profound implication. If they were real and if they influenced our past, then the question of their return becomes paramount. Would they return to check on their creation? Would they intervene again if humanity faced a global crisis, perhaps one of our own making? Or are they simply observing us from afar, allowing us to evolve on our own path, having set the initial conditions for our existence? The very act of looking to the stars, of sending probes into deep space, of listening for signals from distant worlds, could be seen as an unconscious yearning for reunion with our cosmic family, a deep-seated desire to reconnect with our creators. This what-if scenario also forces us to reconsider the nature of God. If the Anunnaki were advanced beings who came from another world, then the concept of a divine creator takes on a new, more scientific dimension. It doesn't necessarily negate spirituality, but it reframes it. It suggests that the gods of ancient times were not supernatural entities, but beings whose technology and knowledge were so far beyond human comprehension that they appeared to be divine. This perspective could bridge the gap between science and spirituality, offering a more unified understanding of the universe, where the miraculous is simply science we do not yet understand. It challenges us to move beyond anthropocentric views of divinity and embrace a broader cosmic understanding of intelligence and creation. The enduring human quest for understanding our origins, for knowing where we came from, is perhaps the most powerful legacy of the Anunnaki. This innate drive, this deep-seated curiosity, could be a direct result of their genetic manipulation, a built-in desire to uncover the truth about our creation. It pushes us to explore, to question, and to seek knowledge beyond the conventional boundaries of human understanding, constantly striving for a deeper comprehension of our place in the vast cosmos. This relentless pursuit of knowledge, a hallmark of human civilization, might be the most enduring gift from our ancient alien mentors. The implications for our future are immense. If we accept the possibility of an Anunnaki past, then our understanding of human potential expands dramatically. It suggests that our capabilities are far greater than we currently realize, perhaps even encoded with dormant abilities waiting to be activated. It could also lead to a more profound sense of interconnectedness with the cosmos, recognizing that humanity is not an isolated phenomenon, but part of a much larger galactic tapestry. This paradigm shift could inspire a new era of exploration, cooperation, and self-discovery as humanity embraces its true cosmic heritage. The what-if of the Anunnaki's legacy also invites us to consider the ethical responsibilities that come with such knowledge. If we were created, do we have a purpose beyond our own self-determination? What moral obligations do we have to our creators, if they were indeed real? And what responsibilities do we have towards our own planet and species, knowing our unique origins? And how would such a revelation impact global religions, political structures, and our collective worldview? The answers would be transformative, challenging every aspect of human society, forcing a re-evaluation of our history, our beliefs, and our future trajectory. Ultimately, the journey through What If the Anunnaki Were Real is an invitation to keep an open mind. It is about daring to question conventional narratives, to look at ancient texts and archaeological anomalies with a fresh perspective. It is about recognizing that the universe is vast and full of wonders, and that the story of humanity might be far more extraordinary than we have ever been told. It encourages us to embrace uncertainty and to consider possibilities that lie beyond our current understanding. The whispers from Sumer, the sudden explosion of civilization, the cataclysmic flood, the enigmatic pharaohs, and the veil of myth, all these elements, when viewed through the lens of Anunnaki intervention, weave together into a compelling alternative history. It is a history that suggests humanity's past is intertwined with cosmic visitors, and that the hidden truths about our own potential and the universe await our discovery. This narrative, while speculative, offers a powerful framework for understanding some of humanity's most enduring mysteries. The Anunnaki legacy is not just about ancient history, it's about our present and our future. It challenges us to look within ourselves for the echoes of their influence, to look to the stars for signs of their return, and to look at the ancient world for the clues they left behind. The journey into the what-if is a journey into self-discovery, pushing the boundaries of what we believe is possible. So as we conclude this exploration, remember the chilling question that began our journey. Were we ever, truly, alone on Earth? If the Anunnaki were real, the answer is a resounding no. And if that is the case, then the greatest adventure of humanity is not behind us, but still lies ahead, waiting for us to fully awaken to our cosmic heritage. The secrets are there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for humanity to finally peel back the veil and embrace the profound truth of its ancient alien gods.